Excellence. It's what educators strive for, parents hope for, and students deserve. We put third grade teacher Tiffany Marinpo to the test. A science education expert observes one lesson and gives notes on how Tiffany can improve her skills. She then has 1 week to make changes before the expert gives a final assessment.
I'm very passionate about what I do, so it is really hard at times when people come in, and if there's a whole notebook, you're only seeing, okay, are these all the things that she thinks I'm not doing well?
Tiffany Marinpo is a third grade teacher in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. Tucked between the Pocono Mountains on the Pennsylvania-New Jersey border, Stroudsburg is midway between Philadelphia and New York City.
I've been teaching 10 years now, and I've always taught third grade. I love third grade. I love it because it's the year that they feel like they're all grown up because they learn how to write cursive, which they feel very sophisticated. And I love that you can still spark their interests and their curiosity, but they still call you mom by mistake.
Stroudsburg Intermediate Elementary School is home to grades 3 and 4. With 800 students enrolled, the school boasts a staff of more than 100 people.
I've worked with Tiffany for the last 6 years. She certainly has a gift, not only probably an innate gift, but also a learned gift. I really believe that she takes her profession beyond the classroom.
Are you girls having fun? Yes. Awesome.
There's just nothing like when a child gets it, or there's a child who feels they can't get it, and you can help them gain that confidence and be proud of himself. There's nothing like that.
Excellent. Now,
I think Miss Marinpo is an awesome teacher. That's the best part about my day. I wake up and I think, oh, thanks, I just want to go to school. She's loving, she's caring, and she's beautiful.
Okay, let's see if you prepped her up. I'm picking a random reporter. Sarah, you were using your brain. Tell me, what did you come up with?
Area.
Excellent.
Tiffany has little problem keeping her students engaged.
What is the area? Quickly talk with your group.
But she recognizes that there is always room for improvement.
This is the first year that I'm teaching water unit because last year we had started it and I was on maternity leave. So it's a lot at night, just kind of reading over it, making sure I know what I'm teaching.
Tiffany's classroom is equipped with the latest interactive technology, but she knows she can be using it to greater advantage.
Last year, I received the Promethean board, and it was actually right before I went out on maternity leave. So I didn't really have too many opportunities to use it last year.
2 children from the Life Skills Special Education program joined Tiffany's class for science lessons. She tries to ensure all her students benefit from the material.
The hard thing, I think, with the grade level that I have and the different levels I have, it's sometimes hard to accommodate and make sense for maybe the students that are, significantly lower, like the life skills kids. Some of the experiments don't make sense to them. So it's trying to make it more relative to real life and why we're doing it, and just tapping into what they can get from it.
We challenge Tiffany to aim for excellence. Dr. Christine Royce is a science education expert. She will observe Tiffany's science lesson and offer professional guidance on how to improve her teaching methods.
A teacher who's doing a good job, first of all, has done their homework. They have homework too. They need to look at what kind of strategies and approaches they're going to use. What works today may not work tomorrow.
I'm doing it anyway. Every night I'm going home and I'm doing it, and this will provide for a great experience with having someone come in that actually understands the field and knows it and can work with me on it.
First question I have for today. What have we been working on in science? Refresh your memories. Let me grab a random reporter, see what we came up with. Even Steven.
We've been working on to see what would evaporate faster.
Ooh, specifics, I like it. Yesterday we worked on evaporation. We started taking a look, we set up an experiment. Now, let's talk about how we went through our experiment. We had our question, we came up with the hypothesis. Okay, we made our hypothesis, went over our safety rules from yesterday. went through, we put our paper towels in the water. We squeezed out most of the water. We put each into a cup of its own. And then we put the 2 cups on the balance. Now, our conclusion was to be continued today, okay? So let's try it out. We're going to hand out our materials from yesterday, and we are going to see what conclusion we can come to.
I think one of the first things I noticed was the fact that she actually had students engaged in and doing science. It's nice to see that students were actually doing the investigations, thinking about the scientific process of asking questions and developing a hypothesis, and then also thinking about what they have to do in setting up the procedure.
No, guys, see, that's why. Because this evaporated faster, so the paper towel's like nothing now. That one's still wet.
Now, what did you discover and why? What is our conclusion?
That all the water stayed in it and there was no sun to hit it.
Excellent. Did you hear that, Eve? He discovered that the heavier cup was the one that had the lid on it, which is what we all discovered. So the water that was in your paper towel that we left open changed into an invisible gas. Does anybody know what that's called? It's called water something. Anybody ever hear of water vapor? That's what water vapor is. When that water evaporated into the air, it created something called water vapor, okay? So we did one main keyword, evaporate, and both of those words are in the back of your science journal in your little pocket of keywords. So right now what I'd like you to do, look in your science journal in the back, pull those little keywords out of your pocket, and I'd like you to find the words water vapor and evaporate. See if you have them in the back pocket of your book. On those 2 words, evaporate and water vapor, I'd like you to put a little check and then put them back inside your folder. Now, this is actually something that we're going to really look at tomorrow. Now, we have 2 lovely scenes. They're both glass containers. Look at temperatures, okay? Think about that. Now, let's see what happens. What do you think would evaporate more quickly? With the cup of water that's in a sunny, nice day, or in the desert? Which one would evaporate more quickly? Talk with your group. Which one and why? Which one do you think will evaporate more quickly? Okay, freeze for a second. Let's watch and see what happens. Where do you think the water would evaporate more quickly? If you think a sunny day, raise your hand. If you think a desert, raise your hand. Okay, let's try and see. So we're gonna think it's over here, okay? Let's watch what happens and see. Okay, so it's day, it's night, the water's evaporating. Which one evaporated more quickly? Which one was empty first? The desert.
Overall, I think the science lesson went really well. Tiffany's a really strong teacher, and the students have a really good grasp of science content that was presented for the curriculum. I did identify a few areas that I think she can work on to improve her lesson so she can go from being really good to moving it towards the next level.
Dr. Royce and Tiffany sit down for a hard look at her science lesson.
Well, Tiffany, thank you for letting me come to your classroom today. I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed seeing what you're doing with your 3rd graders.
I actually really enjoyed having you as well.
We went back over this.
Many of the kids I talked to could tell me exactly what was happening.
Good.
Well, we actually, that was
great.
one of the really good things in your lesson. You had the kids doing science. They were having those aha moments. Some other things I noticed when I was in your classroom, focused on some things that you could tweak. We all look for new things to improve and new strategies.
Absolutely.
And that's part of the professional development process. Coming up with a list of key questions you actually want to ask the night before to make sure they're not all recall questions or simply comprehension questions, but getting into the application questions is one strategy.
That is an area that I'm always trying to get better at and have better questioning.
Say, I'm not going to have more than 10% of the questions I'm asking today be knowledge or be comprehension.
Like, how else could I set up my questioning?
Say to them, if you thought about evaporation this way, can you give me an example of? Very often when you're saying things like, can you give me an example of, you're asking them to apply it to a different situation.
I find myself asking the questions and having them really explain why, but then when they have to give an example of it, that does take it that step further that I haven't been able to do.
What happens when water gets really cold? Cole, think.
That's an example where you asked a question. It was a very specific question. What happens when water gets really, really cold?
Exactly.
And the kid said it turns into ice. Following that up with the question of, well, what happens when that water that's now turned into ice warms up? Gets them thinking about the reverse process. So by asking even questions that you might not yet have covered, to try and take those students a little bit further and just see where they are.
One of my greatest struggles this year is trying to tap all those different levels, and being that I have the range of students from a life skills program up through students that have the gifted plans.
Right. Anytime you could let them try and interact and discuss, that research shows that the social interaction is how they will learn.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I'm heavily group oriented as far as that goes.
So perhaps having key questions at the table that they're supposed to think about, where different kids could perhaps have different responses based on where they are on the spectrum. And then when you're going around and having all of them report out, you start from the lower recall cognitive questions, moving up towards the application and analysis.
So right now, what I'd like you to do, look in your science journal in the back, pull those little keywords out of your pocket, and I'd like you to find the words water vapor and evaporate. See if you have them in the back pocket of your book.
And you might ask them to literally say, what I'd like you to try and do is group your scientific lingo or your science vocabulary into 3 different groups.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell you what those groups are, but you need to figure out why you put a group together. Some other ways I might do that is grounding it, have other pictures on the table. There's several websites that do provide animations that you can actually copy or clip or paste or print something and laminate.
Now, Christian, what do we say we're working on? What's the main thing we're working on?
I would let them try and work through the process of describing that themselves. And by having the small groups either report out or putting it on the board will allow them one more step in the ownership associated with that process.
So typically, I'll have them do it within their group, but I've never really had them show it to the class.
And that kind of brings me to the use of the Promethean board. You've got technology, and you're using it. And it's a great way to use PowerPoints and put information up. But trying to make your lessons, bringing in the visual aspect. So finding some interactive games or activities where you have the kids getting out of their seat and coming up and interacting with the board.
That would be wonderful.
An example, you start it and set up with what kind of day it is, what kind of temperature is it, and which do we think will have faster evaporation. Give each group a different set of variables. And then allow them to come up and literally manipulate the different variables on the screen. You can run through 4 or 5 different setups very quickly using the interactive board.
Yeah.
And then you also have several kids interacting with the board rather than just one. In looking for some activities that dealt with the water cycle and also dealt with the concepts you're presenting in class, always using interactive games or animations is a good way to involve them. And while you might not have some of these where they're able to be done as part of the lesson, where you're intersperse them, you might also just set aside a good 10 or 15 minutes to have kids do these either on the computer, if that's possible, or as a class. And having kids come up and interact with the board will allow them to actually learn more from the lesson and also be more attentive because they're hoping you're going to call on them next to come up and interact. All right, another one we actually have here is this one. So I would, ahead of time, sit down and come up with a series of questions and a different set of variables for each table. And then say to them, based on what you know, you need to now make a prediction of which set would have faster evaporation. Give each station a different set of variables, and then have them come up here and manipulate the variables and check it.
Yeah.
So
That's
it gets
cool.
the kids up and interacting with the actual board.
I love that. I'm definitely, that's awesome too. All right,
So they were
super.
some of the different ideas for interactive
Yeah,
boards,
I
getting
love it.
kids to come up and
That's what I
manipulate
was
it.
looking for, as not only as a means of instruction,
Right.
but as a means of reinforcement and exciting and hands-on and, them really getting to partake in it. That was big. So.
With Dr. Royce's notes, Tiffany has her work cut out for her. She now has 1 week between visits to implement the new strategies they discussed and take her science lesson to the next level.
Everything that Dr. Royce had mentioned are things that I really wanted to try to get better at. It's great because just as well it's something that I can use. It's not just like a one lesson thing. I've been trying to think about what words are really important for the kids to be able to picture on a daily lesson in science. One of Dr. Royce's bits of advice when we met right after the lesson was to use actual photos of real life. And the reasoning behind it was for it to tap into the students that might not be able to read the vocab words or truly understand them. I really liked Dr. Royce's advice about reaching all of the students' levels. She said, you know, why don't you think about maybe putting on a piece of paper for the kids to have a little something that they could respond to. So I searched online for puzzles, and so I modified it to create 4 different levels of instruction. And as they answer their question, they'll put it in the middle to build onto their puzzle. And then the team that has the puzzle done will get a reward. The first level would be like your knowledge, your basic what is, where is, how did something like this happen? And then you have your second level of questioning, which is the comprehension. And then your third level is your application. So actually applying what you learned and taking it to the next level. And then your fourth level would be your analysis. So looking at, you know, examining and breaking down the information into parts and really pulling it apart big time. The kids pretty much all fall between the first 3 levels, and the only other thing I did then was I took the first level and brought it down even a little bit more to allow for all the kids to be able to partake in it. Actually, when I was creating them, I kind of started mid-road at the second level of questioning, and then thought, okay, how can we raise the level and drop the level a little bit to vary the different levels.
With 1 day till Dr. Royce's second observation, Tiffany implements some of the new techniques she's developed.
And originally I was thinking I could use this for my little ones that maybe struggle with reading and wouldn't understand what the word is or the definitions. But then when I went through them and I started doing them, I was like, wow, I want to show this to all the kids. Yeah.
Tiffany prints out the vocabulary cards she's made and will test them out in her science lesson today.
Surface tension doesn't go.
Yeah.
Evaporate.
Go. And then please get your swimming things and line up.
It's the day of Tiffany's second observation. She has only a few hours left to put her best foot forward. Dr. Royce returns to check in on Tiffany's progress and see how she's incorporated the new strategies they discussed into her lesson.
Okay, boys and girls, please put away your books. Clear your desks off except for your science journal. Make sure you have your right journal. Okay, when we started the evaporation locations, what were we doing? What were we working on in this experiment? Drew, what did we do for this experiment?
We wanted to know if water would evaporate in different locations.
Excellent. This is what we're going to do. VIP, Ryan, come on back. I need Jake, Taryn, and Logan come back first. Okay, now, what these kiddos that I have up here are going to do, open it up, fill your syringe. Okay, and it's okay if you get a little air in it. Each of you is going to get a cylinder, and we are going to fill our cylinders then with it. Okay, and you want to get every little last bit. Do we understand what we're doing? Okay, so we're going to take the water out with our syringe, put it in our cylinders. Now, who thinks they could tell me how much there is in their cylinder? Caroline, look over here. How much would you say there is? You're my experts over here, the 4 of you that are looking. 28. Take a look at that line. 28. I agree. So you are letter B. Okay, fantastic. Please put your syringes down. 4 funky clovers, head back to your seats for a second. I need the lucky leprechauns, head back to your seats. Okay? All right, you're going to come up front with me. Go ahead, head up front. Just grab my pen. Nope, you can leave them right there. 4 groups come up front. All right, who is A? Cool. You're gonna write in your amount right here. Now let's take a look. Yesterday in the pool, we started all with 50. Yesterday, the pool area had 43 milliliters. Now today, it only had 28. Now, raise your hand if you'd like to do a puzzle. I love puzzles. So what I did was I created a puzzle, set of puzzles for each group. Each of you are getting a baggie. Inside it, first it's gonna be like a scavenger hunt, like an egg hunt. You have to find your name on the back of a puzzle piece. What you're going to do with that puzzle piece then, when it's your turn, okay, we'll go in order. We have numbers, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You are going to start with number 1. Number 1 will read the question, and then number 1 will answer that question. So your goal is to read and answer your question. As Avery goes, she puts her piece down. Somebody else goes, they put their piece down. See how that works? Now, before that, I have a little quiz for you. You have 3 parts to your quiz, Mike. Hands on your desk, buddy. There is a nice day versus a rainy day, a nice day versus a desert, and a rainy day versus a desert. Your goal is going to be to determine which of the two, when they are going against each other, which of the two will win. Who will evaporate more quickly? Put your names on them, and with your group, fill this out. As you work on your puzzle pieces, I am going to have you come up and try and see who will evaporate more quickly. Do that first. Go.
Circle the one you think is right.
Nice days have like nice bright sun. Yeah, but rainy days have wind. A nice day. Wind and rain. It just blows the water out. It doesn't really evaporate. No, it dries it, but plus, after it dries it, then more rain comes down. Dries it, yeah, nice. Oh wait,
Or maybe rainy day. Think about the swimming pool area. Okay, you never know. Okay, leave them at the top of your desk. Find your puzzle pieces. Start doing your questions. Okay, who's number 2? Okay, Ritika, what's your question? Say, listen to her question.
How would you describe evaporation happening?
How does it happen?
It dries
Okay, why? Where does the water go?
into the air.
Into the air. Interesting.
On the ground.
Okay, come on up, groups. Lucky leprechauns, come on up. What does the second one say, Logan?
Nice day versus desert.
Nice day versus desert. So nice day, change this one to desert. Excellent. Now, which one do we think will evaporate more quickly? Which one do you think? Aaron?
Desert.
Desert. So let's try it. Drag this over here. Good. Let's see what happens, okay? Did we put our puzzles together? Fantastic. Get our puzzles? Awesome. Good. Go ahead, you do your second part. Make sure you're looking through your vocabulary cards. Who found another one? Ooh, show your group. How is that water vapor? What is that?
Boiling hot water.
So you mean you see water vapor when your parents cook pasta? How cool is that?
Go here.
Oh, you didn't choose which ones to evaporate. So think about this. Now we're going to continue to use these little cards. The other 2 groups will get to come up tomorrow when we check our evaporation locations again. Please put all your cards in your little baggie. All your puzzle pieces should be put away.
Well, having sat and watched your lesson today, it's obvious that you had tied in some of the things we had talked about previously, specifically using vocabulary terms and using the vocabulary sorting cards as part of one of your station activities did allow the students to actually go through and think about what they know about the different terms and how they would group them. I think one of the areas to still consider as you're moving through is using the terms in all of your questionings. You did a really good job trying to use the terms when you were having the kids make predictions and draw conclusions. Instead of saying, what did you do today, or what did you do, who can tell me what the procedure is? I also think you did a really good job about trying to involve the Promethean board and having kids do interactive things. Rather than simply you interacting with the board with student answers, you had the students up, you had them interacting with it. That seemed to get the kids really excited about science. The other aspect I thought that was really well done is you did have higher order questions for the different levels in class. The puzzle pieces were obviously hand-selected, who got what question, and the students were able to think about things at a little bit different level, depending on where their level was, and at the same rate allow for some peer teaching by saying that question out loud and also hearing what the other students' answers were.
Everybody, it seemed like, which I was really happy with, was fully engaged with the other people that were discussing. They weren't thinking, oh, this is an easier question, or oh, this is a harder question, that's why I didn't get it. And that was my ultimate goal.
Going forward, I'd probably say continue to work on asking questions at those levels, continue to incorporate the terminology associated with science wherever possible, so they can actually start to think about those terms as well. I'd also say find some more interactive animations for the board. You'll find that the kids really start to get into it, as you noticed today. They were involved, they were active, they were asking questions, and they were thinking about it, not just playing a game online.
You know what else I saw? I saw confidence in the kids. And that is huge, because the kids that feel, oh, I'm not going to know how to answer that question, or that question's too hard. Really, one of the first times that every student in here was talking at their appropriate level.
Well, again, it's been great being in your classroom, and as you continue to move forward, I hope you consider these things and get the kids interested and active in science.
Thank you.
No matter how long you've been teaching, no matter how good you think you are, you can always better yourself. And I think it's just so important to be okay with that and know that that doesn't mean that you're not great at what you do.